Hey everyone, welcome back to Tuckaway Pints. In today's video, I want to talk to you guys about our very first winter in northern Wisconsin with chickens. So before we got chickens, I knew I wanted chickens, so I did a ton of research. The first thing is understanding our climate. And I grew up in southern Wisconsin, so the weather was a little bit different compared to here in northern Wisconsin. Things are a little more extreme, I guess you'd say. We do have some pretty hot and dry summers, or we can have some pretty hot and dry summers. And then our winters can be pretty cold and pretty windy. So understanding the temperature swings and the weather swings up here was very vital for us. And then secondly, a big thing is knowing which breeds we wanted. And that included a ton of research on its own. Understanding which breeds are more heat tolerant and which breeds are more cold tolerant is very important, especially if you live in an area that you do experience extreme seasons. So, and I do want to talk about, on top of all that research, definitely consider, the appearance of your chicken, egg production of your chicken too. So it seems like a lot to look into because there are so many different chicken breeds, but definitely take that time before getting chickens, especially if you are planning on getting chickens, to really figure out which ones that you'll enjoy having in the yard, but the ones that'll work the best for you too in the long run. You don't want to get a chicken that needs attention constantly or might be super sensitive to certain things, because then it's just going to cause more of a stress and headache in the long run. Also, another thing about chickens when looking into breeds is their cones, the little red part on top of their heads. A lot of them that do have large cones, especially if you are in a area that gets very cold winters, they could be at risk of frostbite. The very tips could start turning black and such. Two of our chickens do have large cones. They did experience a little bit of frostbite on those, but doesn't affect them, doesn't hurt them. I mean, I'm sure physically it might not feel the best, but it doesn't impede on their egg production or their quality of life at all. It's just more or less kind of like a scar or something like that. So, but I do have two other chickens that have very short cones, and they haven't been affected by the cold weather at all. So that's kind of a good sign too. But the other two, they seem to be totally fine. And after some time, they will kind of turn gray and either fall off, the tips will fall off, or it'll just kind of heal over. So again, it's nothing to be overly concerned about unless it's, extreme frostbite. So then I'd be a little more concerned and go in with some treatment for that. And obviously another big thing to be aware of and do research on and be prepared for is how to keep them alive in the summertime and in the wintertime. In the wintertime, the main thing was to keep them warm and dry, because with the winds, any snow, we didn't want anything getting into their coop and preventing any, moisture buildup. A lot of the supplies that we got for the winter time to keep them dry and out of the wind were some tarps, like canvas tarps. We just secure them to the sides of the run. That way any wind that was swirling here in the pines wouldn't blow any snow inside their coop and get their bedding all wet. And then another thing is to add extra bedding to help keep them warm and help absorb any sort of moisture if anything did happen to get in there. But we were certain that we didn't want to use any sort of heat sources. I don't want to risk any sort of damage to the coop, to our house, anything like that, to the property. So I felt like it was just a safe thing to avoid any sort of heat sources. Some people have used heat sources, some people do use heat sources, haven't had any issues, but for me, I just feel comfortable not having to depend or worry on something like that too. But I do want to say, I guess if you want to consider it a heat source, we do have two heating elements in here. One is a hot coil that is inside their water barrel, to help keep the water in that barrel thawed. And then we also have a heated water bowl, so that'll help keep their water thawed in the wintertime as well. So I guess if you want to consider that a heat source, we do have that. But otherwise, we don't have any heat lamps or heating pads or anything like that in there. I don't want to risk anything. But if anyone is curious on the water barrel, we do have a video out of how we constructed that. So the next big thing we had to hone in was our routine as far as taking care of the girls. And it really didn't differ too much from our summer routine. I know it's kind of cold and don't want to really go out all the time in the winter time. But again, it didn't really differ too much. We come out here frequent enough to make sure the ladies are okay, ensure their water's good, and the eggs are collected. But that is the thing with wintertime. We did have to throw in a few more egg checks and just a few more water checks. We would always wake up in the morning, get ready for work, and come out, let the girls out of their coop, give them fresh food, some fresh water for the day. And then on our lunch break, we would always come home, check for any eggs, make sure their water was good, because sometimes in the heated water bowl, it would evaporate out. So we'd always just make sure they had a good amount of water still. And then after work, come home, check on them once more, do another egg check, do another water check. And then at night, once they're all inside the coop, we just do one more good solid check for eggs, and we will lock them up inside the coop for the night and repeat the next day. So it is pretty easy, pretty straightforward as far as taking care of the ladies. As far as inclement weather though goes, we would just have to ensure that we were out early enough to either shovel a path to the coop or to the shed where their food is, and just ensure that we have access to them. So keeping track of the weather was a big thing, of course, making sure, keeping track of cold temperatures. If things dropped, into single digits or even the negatives, we had to ensure to, make sure the ladies are going to be warm during this little cold, bit. And same goes with any sort of winter storms that we had. And that goes with the tarps. So the tarps was the biggest lifesaver here, preventing any extra snow to come in. We do have a tarp in front of their run door, and we would just lower that, if there was any inclement weather that would jeopardize them from getting snowed in. But as far as keeping them warm, we would just, again, throw in some extra bedding just to make sure they had that little extra insulation to nestle up in. And also, I would occasionally throw them some little treats that might help them keep them a little more warm and help them produce a little extra body heat. And some of those treats are some corn and oats or even oatmeal, and I would even cook them up occasionally, some scrambled eggs. So another big thing to consider before getting chickens is that they will get bored in the wintertime. We all do. We're always cooped up because it's cold, can't run around, can't do a lot. So we kind of get bored, and we need things to keep us occupied, and so do chickens. So a few things that I've learned and kind of done this past winter was hang cabbage balls. I would just get a whole head of cabbage, and I would actually hang them from the ceiling down so they had time to just sit there and kind of peck it as it swung around and stuff. And it would take them a few days to get it all cleared out. So, that's something they can do, a little activity, and it's a nice treat for them on top of things. And another thing I would do is I stopped putting their food in the little food troughs that I have here for them, and I would just kind of dump them around the run of the coop here in little piles so they can all kind of spend time pecking and scratching and just kind of moving things around and kind of browsing around throughout the day, which I feel like that kind of kept them interested and curious and searching for food instead of just going to one place, picking out, and then that's it, So, and I also did that with the bedding as well. So anytime I did add more bedding in here, I would just lay it out kind of in like piles or clumps, and they would just take it upon themselves to just kind of check through the piles and just kick it and spread it around for me. So it saved me some time, and it gave them something to do for a few minutes or so. So I thought that was pretty useful. But just those are little tips and tricks to keep your chickens from not getting bored, because sometimes chickens have been known to kind of pick at each other when they do get bored. I myself have had a chicken this past winter do that to another chicken, and I do have a video that talks a little bit more about that and how I dealt with that situation too. So definitely go check that video out if you are curious and want to learn more about that type of chicken behavior during the winter, because if you don't take care of it when that does start to happen, it could become fatal for that poor victim chicken. So definitely check that out. So some of the cons for having chickens during the wintertime is, of course, it being super duper cold, super windy. It could be snowing when you have to go out there, and even to have to shovel a path through the snow to the coop or to wherever your supplies are for the girls. It's always a pain in the butt, but it's part of it. And really, it's not that bad. Once you get moving, you warm yourself up anyway. But otherwise, another con is dealing with the moisture. Sometimes, you might get that little warm day and things start to melt, or snow might blow into the coop, and, that melts over time and things just kind of get a little damp. So just ensuring you have that extra bedding is a big plus. And also having a dust bath for your girls for the wintertime too is a big priority as well. That's something that I kind of struggled with. At one point, some snow blew in, got in their little dust bath, and it was just a sopping mess. So I had to actually remove that and create a whole new bath for them. But so far we've been good. As you can see, all of our snow is melted, and I think we are finally out of winter and into spring. You guys, it's official. I'm saying it here. It is official. It's spring. But and then the other con that we experienced was, like I said before, was the behavior issue between the two chickens. But I nipped that in the bud, and they have gotten along since. And I'm especially now letting them out and browse around. That definitely helps them. So it's a big thing in the wintertime to kind of give them little activities, little things to kind of keep them just occupied and not want to, pick at each other. But there are plenty of pros to having chickens in the wintertime. They are extremely entertaining. They're always fun to watch, and they make really good company when you're outside by yourself in the wintertime, because not everyone wants to be outside with you. So they do make great company, especially if you got some chatty ones like mine. And I'm the type of person that loves to take on a challenge, so definitely owning chickens and maneuvering our first set of hurdles with these girls have been a lot of fun. There have been moments of stress, not gonna lie, but I do like that kind of pressure, and I just enjoy it, and it's always something fun, and it's something new, and I love it. So that's me. Not everybody might be wired that way, but I do love a good challenge. So yeah, on that note, that has been our winter with chickens. It's overall been really, really good. Of course, not super perfect. We've had some bumps and had to kind of figure things out along the way, but I feel like we did pretty good. Didn't lose anybody, which is a big, big plus. And yeah, overall, it's been great. And we have been able to collect eggs all throughout the winter. I did notice the eggs did slow down, but there was, honestly, I'd have to look back into my egg log, because since the new year of 2026, I have been keeping track of how many eggs I do collect per day. But if I'm not mistaken, there had to have been at least 2 to 3 days where we got 0 eggs. But pretty much the whole winter time, we at least got 2 eggs. So I think that's pretty impressive, especially for only having 4 hens. It's not like we have a whole flock of birds that were just constantly producing eggs. So I'm very impressed that we were able to maintain a nice steady flow of eggs for us. So yeah, I'm just very happy that we do have the girls, very thankful for this experience, and I'm ready to keep running with it, and I hope these girls continue to keep me on my toes. But I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed it, And I hope you guys, learn from our experience watching this, kind of have a better idea of what it's like to have chickens, especially in colder climates, and especially if you are considering on getting chickens and living in a colder climate. So you kind of have a better idea of what to anticipate. So, but thank you guys again. Please don't forget to like this video. Leave me a comment if you guys have any questions or concerns, or if you are an experienced chicken owner in a colder climate. Maybe drop some tips or tricks that you have learned along the way. I'd be interested in hearing. And definitely don't forget to subscribe so you can see all the fun chicken adventures we have here on the homestead. Alrighty, you guys. Thanks again. Bye.